The big question of the day is, what is going on with fan favorite Toronto Blue Jay, Davis Schneider? Today, we'll get into it.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube or the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Blue Jays is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome back this Friday episode of Locked On Blue Jays. I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Wasco, Carter First 2, as well as on TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Blue Jays. Some of you guys wanted a Discord, so we're working on getting a Discord up and running for you guys as well. So you guys can join that. We can chat. We can answer questions in there. We can get some ideas rolling, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. If you're new here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It really helps us out. Keeps us to the top of your guys' page. We notice a lot of you guys aren't subscribed. So when you're watching these, you might as well throw it out there. It's free. It helps us out. Might as well. Also, hit the little bell icon if you're on YouTube. Then you're at least notified when all of our videos go live, and it makes it easier to find our content. I guess today's sort of a weird one. It's a little bit of a weird one. It's a conversation that I necessarily didn't want to have, but one that I think we have to. And that's regarding my favorite Blue Jay right now, Davis Schneider. I got all his jerseys hanging behind me. It's going to be a little bit of an interesting one. We have a cool mailbag question from the other day, courtesy of Justin Powers. So it's a really cool sort of idea. We really wanted to get into it. We like that. We're going to use that. And then series preview in the third segment. So Carter, I guess I'm going to sort of kick it off here with Davis Schneider, just his season stats from 2024 so far. 309 at-bats with a 207 average, 10 home runs, 37 RBI, 4 stolen bases with an OPS of 660. It's just frustrating, right? Like, it's a guy that you had so much hope for after last season, going into this season. At this beginning of this season, he played really, really well. And it just hasn't translated throughout the whole season. It's almost like he can't put everything together for long stretches. Yes, he might have a really good couple weeks, and then he sort of disappears, and he comes back and plays really well. But this has been an extended stretch of not the best baseball. Over his last 7 games, he has 21 at-bats. He is hitting .095 with an OBP of 136 and a slugging of 143 over his last 15 with 48 at-bats, 146 with 222 on-base percentage, a slugging of 208. And in his last 30 games, this is where it gets concerning that it's over this long of a stretch. In 81 at-bats, he's hitting a 173 with a 253 on-base percentage and a slugging of 210. It just hasn't gone his way. He really has to figure something out, make a change here if he wants to be on this Toronto Blue Jays team next year, in which I think a lot of fans want him to be. I think everybody loves Davis Schneider. It's just, you still got to be able to play good baseball. Hey, Carter?
Absolutely. And you can even go farther back with his struggling efforts for Davis Schneider. You can go all the way back to June 1st. The guy's hitting 171, has a 500 OPS, and is striking out at a rate of 35%. Just not necessarily putting the bat on the ball. And obviously, if you want to have productive at-bats, if you want to actually do damage, you're going to have to put the ball in play a couple times, believe it or not. So with Davis Schneider, they are getting him striking out at a pretty good clip right now. He's never going to be a guy that's hitting for average, so the average thing isn't as big of a deal for me. I'm really looking at the slugging percentage, the OPS, obviously the OBP as well. You want Davis Schneider with as good of an eye as he has. You want him to be getting on base. And it's an approach thing with Davis Schneider. That's really what it's been. But before I get into the approach, I just want to go back into 2023 when he was raking, obviously had one of the best starts ever from a rookie in the MLB. So in that first series against the Boston Red Sox, he was tied in the major leagues for the most hits ever through 3 games of baseball. Again, very small sample size in 3 games. But even when you go back and you look at Davis Schneider's year in 2023, again, not a lot of guys knew about Davis Schneider. We were guys that were very big fans, didn't quite have this podcast yet. when he was coming up, as soon as he got, like, I think for us, he got to AAA, and we're like, okay, we're starting to hear about this Davis Schneider guy. But before that, he's a 28th round pick. He was starting the year, I believe, in AA. You're not really going to hear a lot about a guy that isn't a highly touted prospect, wasn't necessarily supposed to make his way up the ranks that quickly. And boy, did he ever. You saw Davis Schneider, you saw what he did as a rookie. Obviously, I think most fans believe that he wasn't going to be able to keep up that pace because it was absolutely insane. And baseball is a very hard sport. Once players get a scouting report on you, they kind of figure you out. If you realize what your weaknesses are, that's when they can start attacking you and making a plan to just figure out what the best course of action is to attack you in a baseball game. So looking at his last year's stats, Davis Schneider was absolutely raking. So he had a 276 batting average, a 404 OBP with a 603 slugging, which gives him a 1007 OPS over that little span he had. Again, this is only over 35 games, so he didn't play a lot of games, very small sample size. But again, when you look at these numbers, very good across the map. He was hitting for power, hitting a lot of home runs, exactly what the Toronto Blue Jays needed at that time. And really came in as a major spark plug for the Toronto Blue Jays offense. Again, you look at 2023, that offense was struggling pretty mightily at that point. You had a bunch of guys that weren't necessarily having great years. You look at Vladdy, a little bit of an off year. A ton of other guys we could go through. Kevin Kiermaier still on this team, actually having a very good year at that point. But again, we're going to focus more so on Davis Schneider, not the offensive woes that Toronto Blue Jays just continue to have, it seems like. But we'll go to the approach. So with Davis Schneider, obviously, he has those 35 games, and pitchers have the ability to get this analysis on this guy, to get a scouting report. And it is fairly obvious about what Davis Schneider can do. I just wanted to make sure I looked up his heat maps. He's very good at low and in pitches. He's always been good at squaring up fastballs, whether it's curveballs, anything in this lower and in zone. He's always been very good at. Outside, it gets a little bit worse. And his pitch that he just cannot seem to figure out is the high fastball. Pitchers have been throwing him high fastballs a ton in recent at-bats, and he has been struggling with them mightily. He can't get the bat around to a high fastball. And you can see it in multiple at-bats. Usually what they'll do is they'll set him up high, they'll get a high or outside for his pitch strike off the fastball. Then they'll try to get his head off of that inside or high and outside fastball. And they'll go work something inside, low and away, down in, something like that. And they'll go right back to the high fastball. And since he's been struggling so heavily against that pitch, that is what pitchers have been throwing him. And it has obviously worked very well to their benefit. So for Davis Schneider, for any MLB player at that matter, you're going to have to make in-season adjustments. You're going to have to figure out what pitchers are doing to you, what your weaknesses are, and how to combat them, how to get better at these pitches. You saw him do this a little bit at the end of 2023, where he did go on a little bit of a slow run again, but it looked like at the start of the season, he really had it figured out. But again, now you look at since June, he really hasn't been an effective MLB player, has not been great at the plate. It's mostly due to this high fastball. But Braden, do you have any sort of fixes for Davis Schneider? Do you think he can do anything to maybe fix this approach problem? Does he just have to sit on the high fastball? Is it something with the swing? Do you have any ideas that can fix Davis Schneider for the rest of this season, maybe the upcoming season?
Yeah, I got a couple, but I think the big one that you have to lean into, and I know they've touched on this on the broadcast and stuff, is that he really doesn't have a two-strike swing. Everything is swinging out of his boots. And it's an aggressive swing. You want guys to have aggressive swings. But when you're slumping and you're trying to figure something out, and I see you swinging so hard that you're knocking your helmet off your head a few times, that's not a competitive swing. Davis Schneider has a great eye. He doesn't have to be a contact guy, but he has a very powerful swing. He's a very strong guy. So you don't have to have this high leg kick, the insane swinging out of your boots. Stay a little bit more compact. Try to put the ball in play. That's how you're going to work yourself out of bad situations that you sort of have been in this past little bit. He swings way too hard. And I know some people aren't going to like that. You should be swinging hard all the time. But when things aren't working, you have to find solutions. And sometimes the solution is, hey, I'm going to put the ball in play, gain confidence back. And half the time, Carter, is, me and you've known from playing, coaching baseball. Sometimes it's just about barreling the baseball. It's not so much where you have to be swinging as hard as humanly possible. You just got to hit it in the right spot and it's going to go. And that's what Davis Schneider was doing for a lot of this time. He was doing very good in two-strike counts when he did shorten up. Then he went away from shortening up It started to hurt him at the end of last season. He comes back at the start of this year, and he was swinging like that super overly aggressive swing. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's killing him. I think the guy needs to have a little bit smaller of an approach. Don't take the leg kick. Make it into a toe tap or just a twist. He's a strong guy. He should be able to hit the ball hard without that Joey Homer's leg kick, without swinging out of his boots. Just shorten everything up. Figure it out. Because otherwise, he's not going to find a spot on this team next season.
Yo, and you're exactly right with that two-strike swing thing. I actually have a couple of stats from the season that go over Davis Schneider and what his batting average is like, and just I'll throw in a couple other ones as well, but with two-strike counts. So when it's 3-2, he has an average of 0.94. Not going to get it done. Through 2-2, he has an average of 1.26. Through 1-2, he has an average of 1.35. And somehow through 0-2, he's actually better than all the other ones, and he has an average of 1.69. Again, it's still not great, though. You're hitting under 170 in every single spot here when you have two strikes. That's just simply not going to play. He's just not getting hits. And I think a lot of that is due to your swing path theory, that swing approach theory with two strikes as well. So again, you look at his hits, for example, through two strike counts, 5 when it's 3-2. He has 13 when he's 2-2, 17 when it's 1-2, and then 12 when it's 0-2. Again, it's just for all the plate appearances this guy does have in these situations, 71 and 0-2 accounts, 126 and 1-2, 103 in 2-2, and then 3-2, he has 79 for having 5 hits, 12 hits, 10 hits. This average is not going to work out. You got to put the bat on the ball more often, and his contact is struggling mightily when you're looking at these two strike counts. And even in general with Davis Schneider, it's when something isn't working for as long as it has been. You think he would make an adjustment. You think somebody would be in his ear, because this isn't just a 15-game slump. This isn't a 30-game slump. This has been a slump that has gone over 3 months. And you need Davis Schneider to be better. Again, for this season, not necessarily, but if you want him to have a spot on the roster, if he continues to have at-bats like this and not put the ball in play, not have competitive at-bats, strike out at a clip that he's striking out at right now, it's going to be tough for him to find a spot on this team, especially when a lot of other prospects on this team are showing out right now, especially looking at guys like Will Wagner. You look at Joey Lopavito, not necessarily showing out, but has, like, you could say, a little bit more upside than Davis Schneider, maybe a little bit of a safer floor as well. Addison Barger will be a guy that will be competing for reps. Ernie Clement almost cemented for me as a player that is going to play for your baseball team in 2025. You look at the offseason that they still have to have. So Davis Schneider is running out of time to put together these at-bats, to put together a little bit of a stretch here that shows that he can be an MLB-ready talent that is going to compete day in and day out on this Toronto Blue Jays team. And just looking at the start of his season as well, that was the last thing I kind of wanted to get into here with Davis Schneider. And that is his start of the season actually was pretty solid. He just really fell off in the months of June, July, and August. It was again, not looking great, but again, it's one of those things that pitchers figure you out. You got to make adjustments, and it hasn't seemed like Davis Schneider has necessarily made those adjustments for this season. So you look in April, it's not. I'm not even going to count March. He played like 3 games in March, so we'll just skip right to April. 262. 348 OBP with a 426 slugging percentage for an OPS of 774, an 832 OPS in the month of May. Seeing a little bit of power here, was starting to hit some home runs and then just completely fell off. And it contributes to that two-strike approach. You got to work on something there. You got to shorten down your swing, get more bat on the ball skills, and then you guys got to figure out how to hit the high and outside pitches. Those are 2 things that if we're seeing that as fans in the game, just using the eye test as well, you can tell that Davis Schneider's not very good against high fastballs. You think teams with full-on analytics departments, scouting departments aren't going to see these things. For me, it's just, again, there's obviously got to blame Davis Schneider a little bit for here, but what is going on with the Toronto Blue Jays management as well? Has nobody tried at least to fix Davis Schneider's swing? Hasn't really seemed like his at-bats have changed much from June all the way up until right now. So a big problem that the Toronto Blue Jays have, and we have outlined the fixes, but maybe, obviously, it's not maybe. Obviously, it is a more complex issue than that. You got to figure out what is going to work for Davis Schneider, what's not going to work for Davis Schneider, and you got to figure it out quick because we are running out of time for this guy to work on his confidence going into 2025.
Yeah, and like you're going back to what I said, it's a big fix, but it's not a big fix, right? Like I always sort of say, get back to when things aren't working, you just got to go back to the fundamentals. Try to put the bat on the ball. At the end of the day, you are a professional baseball player and you're paid to figure these things out. In part of that is, again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. It doesn't have to be just a 2-strike swing. Start making that swing, that shorter, more compact, not as heavy swing. Start doing that right from pitch 1. In this scenario, when you're trying to figure something out, take it back to the fundamentals and just try to put the ball in play for now. Then when you start getting the confidence, you go back to that bigger swing. But I think in doing that more compact swing, Davis Schneider will be able to punch some more balls and hopefully bring his confidence up where he can then extend into hitting trying to get and hit for power again. Carter, we've been rambling about Davis Schneider. I mean, there's a lot we could say because it's a problem for sure. And we're trying to figure out what this team's going to look like going into 2025. And personally, I'd love to see Davis Schneider on this team in 2025, but right now it is looking rough. In saying that, we have a ton more to get into. I want to get into this mailbag question from Justin Powers. Very interesting conversation. We're going to have that right away. And then, of course, we do have the series preview we'll get into in the third segment. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. You guys know that I love Liquid IV. I need it almost all the time because I am the most dehydrated human being on the planet. It is a perfect mix of nutrients and electrolytes that sort of keep me rolling through the day, especially on Sundays. Sundays, most of the time, I need about 4 Liquid IVs. And it's super easy. You rip them open, you dump them in a glass of water, water bottle, whatever you want to do. Shake it up, you're good to go. Liquid IV is just a saving grace for me. Powered by Live HydroSense, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. So, Carter, we talked about the mailbag segment. We want to get doing more of these. So, again, if you guys have mailbag questions, leave them in the comments. You can send it to us on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever you guys want to do. You can get them to us that way. This was an interesting one. I just actually have to look for it a little bit from Justin Powers. I did screenshot it, but of course, it's impossible to find it when you want it.
And with these mailbag questions, we have said that we want to get a Discord going. That's probably what we're going to do for a lot of these mailbag questions. It'll be a lot easier to interact with you guys. You'll get closer, just more raw reactions from us. Obviously, when we're watching the baseball games, you guys can throw some stuff in there. We'll react to it right on the spot. Just a very easy way for you guys to start discussing topics with us if you want to have more direct contact. We'll definitely be on there quite a bit as this Blue Jay season comes to an end. But Braden, did you end up finding that mailbag question from Justin?
Yeah, thanks for the little assist on that one. I could have used a couple seconds. So Justin Powers, mailbag question. This was from, I believe, Tuesday's episode, I believe. Justin says, if the Toronto Blue Jays opening day roster played a 4-game series against the current lineup, who do you think would win? What an interesting question. So he's talking about a 4-game series. So again, you have to sort of look at a few different things, including, what do the bats look like? I mean, the bats were pretty dead at the beginning of this season. So it is an interesting question. But if you just look at the guys on the team, I'll give you sort of a look at what the team was opening day. Opening day, George Springer, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Justin Turner, Dalton Varsho, Alejandro Kirk, Kevin Kiermaier, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Kevin Biggio. Pitching would have been Jose Barrios in that first game. We already know how the pitching matchups are. And then, you know what, Carter, just sort of looking through that lineup, it's not like it's insanely different. It's not, above and beyond. This team still has, some of the same pieces. Going to look at, I'm going to take Tuesday's lineup here and that's the one we use. It'll be George Springer, Dalton Varsho, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Spencer Horwitz, Ernie Clement, Will Wagner, Leo Jimenez, and Joey Lopervito, plus Brian Servin. And the pitching would have been Kevin Gausman. But let's focus more on the hitting side of things, I think, because the pitching has pretty much stayed the same. If you wanted to go into a 4-game series, one would have Yariel Rodriguez. The other one would have probably Alek Manoah at that time. So, debate that how you will. Carter, to be honest with you, when I look at these two lineups, I'm much more confident in the lineup that we have now, surprisingly. Spencer Horwitz not in that lineup. Ernie Clement not getting playing time. Vlad has turned it up to another notch since then. I mean, yes, you don't get any production from Dalton Varsho compared to when he started the season. There's a little bit more production from him, but now you have George Springer as well playing very well. It is tough because it's either the old guys versus the young guys, pretty much. That's how we're sort of framing this question. Carter, I'll throw it to you. Sort of give me your answer and sort of why you think about it, or why you went that way.
See, for me, I have like a lot of background questions. Like, are we accounting for injuries at this time? Are we accounting for player performances at this time? So for me, what I'm going to do the way I'm going to answer this question, I'm going to assume that players that are injured at that point were injured at that point, and players that are injured now or injured right now, obviously. And then I'm also going to say with the player performances, I'm going to say how are they playing at that time compared to how are they playing right now. So you're looking at that opening day roster. George Springer was a pumpkin at that point. Absolutely terrible. It was not good. Bo Bichette was okay, I think, around that time. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. starts a little bit slow. You're right. Dalton Varsho was playing a little bit better. Then you have IKF, who was okay at that point, not doing anything too crazy. You have Kevin Kiermaier. You have Alejandro Kirk. Some guys that, again, just weren't doing anything too crazy. But one advantage that opening day roster does have over the Toronto Blue Jays right now is the bullpen. The bullpen, again, at that point was not amazing. It wasn't great. But you look at it right now, and this bullpen is struggling a whole bunch because I can't remember. Was Jordan Romano injured to start the season?
Yeah, he would have been out the first couple days.
And then Eric Swanson would have been as well, for sure, because of his son Toby at that time. But going into it, it's a 4-game series. I'll say this before I get into my answer. Say that the older team did win. I think with this team, the roster we have right now, I think I'd be a lot less upset about a series loss to that team than I would be if I was at that point with that team losing to the Toronto Blue Jays team we do have right now. But overall, you go through it. It's pretty close. I mean, both teams aren't very good, unfortunately. But you go in a 4-game series. A lot of it does come down to the bullpen. At that point, unfortunately, I'm still going to have to take the old team. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. could probably carry this team right now to a series victory over that old team. But you look at the guys like Justin Turner, you look at Bo Bichette, who was still hitting okay at that point. George Springer, again, wasn't completely horrible at that time, but he definitely wasn't good. Right now, I just think the starting pitching was pitching a lot better at that time. You have bullpen help. A lot of these series do come down to pitching. So I think it would be very close. If I honestly had to pick, I think it'd be a split 2-2 in that series. I don't think either team would come out on top. If I had to lean towards one, like say we had to go into extra innings or something along those lines after that, I think I would have to go with the older team. I think they have more depth on that team. You look at this team right now, just from the Tuesday lineup that went out there. George Springer's been hitting well. Dalton Varsho been okay, I guess, as of recently. Vladdy's really good. Spencer Horwitz really good. Ernie Clement, Will Wagner. Now I'm going over it. You got the hitting probably. You definitely have a hitting advantage with this team right now. But I think the pitching clears overall in that opening day roster team. But I would have way more fun watching this team than I would that opening day roster because I can still remember those days at the beginning of March, the end of March, beginning of April. That team, we still had a little hope for, and maybe that's the hope that I'm for some reason holding on to right now because I do know how this whole saga ends, and it's not very good for the Toronto Blue Jays. But with IKF, I guess seeing how his season went with Vladdy, seeing how his season went, maybe I'm having the opposite of recency bias. I just remember them being better at the start of the season, the first at least month of the season, than the days of May, June, July, things like that. So overall, I think it's very close, but I do think that the older team, the opening day team, would just barely edge out this team if it came down to a 4-game series.
Yeah, I'm sort of, I don't mind the answer. I agree the pitching was outstanding at that time. I mean, Jose Barrios was an absolute beast. But I think as a 4-game set, Carter, this team's hitting now has been so much better. The run support has been so much better that you don't need Kevin Gausman to go out and throw 7 innings, 8 innings of scoreless baseball. You can give up a couple runs. And I honestly don't believe that opening day roster is getting more than, I mean, I guess they did. I think they scored 8 runs opening day. But I don't believe that in a 4-game series, they're going out and scoring 6 to 8 runs a game. I just can't see it. The roster we have now on this Toronto Blue Jays team is a team that I could see that could put up 6 to 8 runs, even on how the starting pitching was. Maybe they lose the Jose Barrios game and the opening day roster puts up 3 runs and they get the win. But I think overall, I could see this team now strangely enough, taking that series 3-1.
See, I'm just, this is what I'm doing. I'm going Jose Brios. He's going 8 innings. Chris Bassett, I think he had a stinker his first start. So maybe I got to account for that. Kevin Gossman would have been available at that time. Why run I'm taking, but I have Yimi Garcia with that team. Yimi Garcia was just the greatest pitcher of all time at that month as well. So you got him. I'll have Chad Green. I'll have Trevor Richards, who was very good at that time. But then I have to rely on guys like Tim Meza. I don't know if I want to throw Tim Meza in any game ever, to be honest. Eric Swanson, again, injured. Jordan Romano, injured. So I'm really just relying on the 3 guys. But I do have Yusei Kikuchi as well. That's another guy that I got making up the rear for Kevin Gossman, who was injured at that time. So I think that's why I'm just going to lean pitching here. I know the offense has been better recently, but that's why I went with my answer. I think the pitching can carry. I think with the bullpen arms, you have about 3 good ones at that time. You have Jose Brios, as you said, being the pitcher of the month in April. So I think that's a huge advantage. Obviously, I think I would take that first game. And just as soon as you get to the bullpen on this team, it's like, who are we throwing out here? Like, you're going to throw Tommy Nance in high leverage in the 8th inning. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. But can that team hit anyway? That's the other question. So it's really which one is worse, the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen right now or the Toronto Blue Jays hitting at that time? That's why I think it's up for debate. I don't know if there's any right answer necessarily here, but leave us your answer in the comments. You can say if I'm right, if Braden's right, who you're on the side of more so. But like I said, it would be way more fun to watch the team right now because you know the expectation at least. You know you got to see some prospects play. You got to see some guys raking, the offense being a lot better. They're actually scoring runs, which for me, it's a lot more fun to watch a 9-8 baseball game than it is to watch a 2-1 baseball game, especially if your team is on the losing end of that. But yeah, the bullpen, I mean, as soon as you get to the bullpen, it should be over. Even that team with the Toronto Blue Jays, I think would be able to hit off of the bullpen that we do have right now.
You'd hope so. But yeah, who knows? It is an interesting conversation. That's why when Justin posed this question, it was sort of a fun one to do. We like having these conversations. Again, if you guys got comments like this, scenarios, whatever, that you want us to go over, make sure you guys drop a comment. Say mailbag and then say the comment, and we'll make sure we get to that as well. In saying that, we have a series to preview coming up here over the weekend. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with that. And there's a lot more Blue Jays information coming down next week as well. So we'll try to get you guys everything. Just keep an eye out for TikToks and stuff like that. We got this new thing we're going to try out, I think, over the weekend. In saying that, Carter, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Today's episode is also sponsored by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you can pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is very simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entries in as little as 60 seconds. So the Chicago Cubs do have Kyle Hendricks slated to pitch on this Friday game. So I'm going to be hammering some more thans for the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm just going to go with the regulars, the guys that I know are going to be playing. You're going to have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I got him more than bases. I got him more than fantasy points at 7.0. Then I also have Spencer Horwitz. I have him more than 0.5 extra base hits. I think he's going to hit a gap at some point in this game. Then I'm also going to throw one out to George Springer. I think George Springer is going to take advantage and maybe, help add to that leadoff bomb total. So I just got him at more than 1.5 bases, not necessarily betting the leadoff bomb because that is a little bit bold, but I do think he's going to have a good game. So if you know which players are going to perform on specific nights, this is a no-brainer. You can download PrizePicks and start making your picks today. If you download the app today, you can use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100.
So, guys, as Carter said, it'll be Hendricks pitch against Yariel Rodriguez Friday night. Saturday, I guess not Friday night. It's Friday afternoon game. Saturday, an afternoon game as well. Chris Bassett versus Steele. Nice. Steele is at a 3.16 ERA. Bassett's sitting at a 4.3. Bowden Francis versus Shota Imanaga. Bowden Francis 4.92. Imanaga 3.16 with a 9-2 record. He's looking really good this season. The Chicago Cubs are just not a team that I necessarily follow a ton. I just have they're sort of middle of the pack team, not very good. And I just don't care about the Chicago Cubs, but we're playing them, so let's see what happens. again, there's not much when I sort of go through the weekend games that I'm like, I'm not going to put my bet out there on how many games the Blue Jays are going to win because who knows at this point. But at the end of the day, I hope to see a lot of the prospects in there doing well. I hope Will Wagner continue on his great pace. We'll sort of see what he can bring to the table over the next few games. And that's sort of what I'll be looking for. Hopefully Vlad can continue to smoke the baseball. How about you, Carter?
Just looking at this team, like the Cubs look way better on paper than the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, they have a lot of good players. The first game, you got to hope you can win against Kyle Hendricks. He's not that good. I'll flatly say that. Justin Steele obviously has been a Cy Young candidate. I believe he does have a Cy Young win as well, or maybe he was a top 2. I can't remember. Again, with the Chicago Cubs, like I do know some players on this team. Like Michael Busch is a pretty good prospect they have coming up there. Seiya Suzuki is on my fantasy team. Shout out to him. Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson. Like, there's some good guys on this team, and they do look a lot better than the Toronto Blue Jays, but they really fault with their starting pitching other than their last 2 guys, obviously going in this series with Steele and Imanyaga. But both of them look really good. And what I'm going to look for in this series is on the first game, honestly, don't really care, to be honest. You don't get a win, hopefully. But competitive at-bats from these younger guys against guys like Justin Steele, like Imanyaga, you want these guys to be able to face big league pitching and some of the best to do it in the NL. Honestly, in all of baseball, these 2 are very good pitchers. Going to be tough to beat them in this weekend series. So you got guys like Will Wagner, Joey Perfido, Aston Barger, even guys like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You always want to see them hitting good pitching because they're going to have to face good pitching for the rest of their careers. So right now, my top 3 that I'm really keeping my eyes on for this series, I'd say Will Wagner, obviously, just can keep that. Can he keep the hot stint going? We're going to hope so on this podcast. Joey Perfido, like I said before, I just want to see him do something. Do something's not the best way to say it because he's been doing some stuff out there. He's been trying, but he has been striking out at a tremendous clip. I want him to be able to put some more balls in play. And then for me, my next one, I probably want to say Leo Jimenez. He's starting to hit for power a little bit. He's having a lot more doubles. Had his first career home run the other day as well. If he can have some competitive at-bats, start driving some balls as well. Those are 3 guys that I'm going to be watching. And then obviously Yariel Rodriguez, as he continues to drop that ERA, drop some of those advanced statistics, keep striking people out. As long as he has his command, he's going to be very effective out there. But overall, just comparing the Toronto Blue Jays to the Chicago Cubs, 2 teams that I guess you could say have had more disappointing seasons. The Chicago Cubs are still technically in the wild card race. I guess you could say the Toronto Blue Jays are as well, but I wouldn't necessarily go that far when you're talking about the Toronto Blue Jays. But again, we're just looking for more so focusing on individual player performances for me than the team aspect. But again, you do obviously want every single player on the Toronto Blue Jays to have successful weekends. I'm never going to cheer against the Toronto Blue Jays. But saying that, being a little bit hypocritical, I think they win the first game and lose the next 2.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I honestly just don't care if it's I mean, I want them to win, but I don't necessarily care. I think it's better for your draft position if you do bad, but then I also don't want to see them lose. So it's a sort of a tale of 2 things here. At the end of the day, Carter, I don't know, man. I'm sort of in the mode of wanting to just watch baseball, and that's as far as I'm going to sort of take it. I'm going to leave it as is. I'm just going to try to enjoy myself this weekend. Take a little bit of the weekend off here. I'm going to just sort of chill out and try to have just a good time, nice chill, catch up on some sleep because, man, do I need it. And so, yeah,
the Toronto Blue Jays games, you got some afternoon games going on. You don't have the 8:45 starts that we're dealing with. We were dealing with during the Los Angeles Angels series. So it's a little bit of a switch up. That's definitely nice for us. I don't think it's the worst idea for you to take a weekend off.
No, I don't think so either. And then we got slow pitch weekend next weekend. So we got playoff start Monday for us. So we're going to be full in grind mode on slow pitch baseball this week. It's always a good time. We're really, we're just really excited to get out there and have a fun weekend. It's fun baseball. You play a ton of games. I'm probably not gonna be able to move on Monday, but that's where we're at. As always, guys, I want to thank you guys for listening. And make sure if you make us your first listen of the day, make Locked On MLB your second listen of the day. Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, has a bunch of good content out there, and he's a funny guy. He has great segments. He really puts together a great show. Go check him out on Locked On MLB if you got the time. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening wherever you're at. Anything to sort of wrap things up, Carter?
Another thing I want to see. Let's see Davis Schneider nuke. Let's see if he can hit a beach ball this weekend. Unfortunately, just a little bit of a ricochet shot for my boy, but you got to see something better from the kid. But as always said, the likes, comments, all the sport's been appreciated. keep coming with the subscriptions, the debates. We obviously love seeing. We're going to work on that Discord, get that up to you guys, because like we always say, the debates are probably our favorite point on this podcast. Whether we agree with your points, whether you disagree, whether you like us, whether you hate us, any comments is always appreciated. But we do obviously appreciate the positive ones more. But like I said, let's head into, I guess, the weekend. It's gonna be a fun time against the Chicago Cubs. Hopefully we can win a few baseball games over this weekend.